In Peru, relatives and defenders of the Juliaca massacre victims demand justice for violating their fundamental rights. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said the military bloc is seeing some signs that China will support Russia in the conflict with Ukraine. Presidential candidates in Nigeria signed peace agreement as political tensions rise ahead of February 25th presidential elections. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Peru, relatives and defenders of the Juliaca massacre victims demand justice for violating their fundamental rights. During the conference, the relatives demand justice. They denounced the irregularities in the investigation carried out by the Public Prosecutor's Office. The government of Dina Boluarte has taken a criminal measure that goes against the rule of law, said Jamie Dador, the National Human Rights Coordinator. The families and defenders also denounced the deterioration of the health system due to the lack of primary health care to those injured during the protests, noting that the Department of Puno is part of Peru. Speaking on the proposed modification to the penal code, Peruvian Minister of Justice José Tello stated that the decision cannot be described as authoritarian because it is a position supported by the Council of State.
I would eliminate the term authoritarian, and let's start with the fact that it's not only a position of the executive, but also of the members of the Council of State. So we have to separate the things. The context of protest that we have today is fine. We have to be respectful when protesting, but we also have to be cautious. That protest cannot escalate and end in acts of violence. I think we all understand that, because it is one thing to go out and protest on the streets, and another thing to go and take over airports.
Bolivia's presidential spokesman, Jorge Richer, assured on Thursday that opponents in the Santa Cruz region are seeking impunity with the demand for amnesty for those they call politically persecuted, while admitting the commission of illegal action since 2019. Richer assured that they have been seeking impunity since November 2021, with actions through what they call civic strikes that have a background of impunity, a kind of blackmail of violence to exonerate from responsibility the people who acted in the coup d'etat. On Wednesday, the Santa Cruz opposition, Romulo Calvo, threatens the President Luis Arce with activating a recall process of his constitutional mandate if in the next 72 hours he does not issue a decree with an amnesty in favor of the 180 prison political prisoners. Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva's government has announced that it will deliver the $1.36 billion in the next 180 days to rebuild San Sebastián. The coastal region of Sao Paulo state, where people were enjoying the carnival weekend, the equivalent of 2 months of rainfall fell in the last 2 days, a record in the history of Brazil. So far, 48 people are the reported dead, thousands are missing, and more than 2,000 have had to leave their homes. The municipality had not received money from preventive since 2013. In San Sebastián, there had been at least 37 complaints over the last 3 years regarding non-regularizations of risk areas without the mayor office taking action. In Argentina, the impeachment committee of the Chamber of Deputies recalled on Thursday testimonies against the members of the Supreme Court. The commissions began a period of investigations, collection of evidence, and testimonies of judges and officials in order to determine whether to issue a document accusing members of the highest court of poor performance and irregularities. In early January, President Alberto Fernandez, together with 11 governors, requested the prosecutor with a 410 pages document in which they detail the violations of the Supreme Court in their functions. Let's take a very short break now, but remember, you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. A winter storm in the U.S. that led to the death of at least one person and knocked out the power of hundreds of thousands of customers in the upper Midwest was continuing its assaults in the region on Thursday. Nearly 900,000 customers were without power across Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Minnesota. Meanwhile, more than 700,000 of these outages were in Michigan, where significant ice had accumulated in trees and power lines. According to a statement from Van Butter County Chief Office, the storm killed a volunteer firefighter from the Paw Paw Fire Department in Michigan. Residents of the Syrian provinces hit by the earthquake, in addition to the support of the country's authorities, are continuing of the support of their brothers in other Syrian provinces. The scenario is marked by hundreds of social solidarity initiatives aimed at easing the suffering of the affected families. Our correspondent in Syria, Hisham News, with the details.
The Syrian Civil Association to Help Children with Cancer receives at its headquarters in Aleppo donations, medicines, clothes, and food from all the Syrian provinces. Resources that before the earthquake were sent to children suffering from cancer, and now, after the catastrophe, a large part of the funds collected are destined to the families of these children and other families left homeless by the earthquake.
In the middle of these difficult circumstances that the country is going through due to the earthquake that hit several provinces, including Aleppo, we are helping sick children with cancer whose families were left without a home, and in addition to medicines and medical treatment, we offer them clothes and food that we receive from all parts of our people.
The earthquake has created a serious situation in the face of which all Syrians are united, and like me, thousands of people and organizations. We offer everything we can to mitigate the suffering of our affected brothers, and as for me, I try to guarantee the needs of the children, such as milk, clothes, medicine, and health care.
At the same time, and immediately after the earthquake, the Damascus-based Saed Association mobilized dozens of young volunteers and set up food assistance centers in Latakia, Aleppo, and Hama, where it provides more than 8,000 food rations daily to the affected people.
We are doing humanitarian work, where all the people opt for solidarity within the humanitarian framework, which is why we demand that the blockade be lifted so that we can carry out our work of helping our suffering compatriots and remain united in the face of adversity.
Our association receives material donations from the civil society, where people offer what we need to prepare the food rations, which shows our social solidarity and that we are members of a single family in a single home, which is our great homeland, where we help each other to overcome the repercussions of the disaster.
These two associations are an example of the many social solidarity initiatives that characterize the current scenario in Syria, and through which not only are they trying to overcome the repercussions of the earthquake, but also the aftermath of the war and the blockade imposed on the Syrian people. Social solidarity is a virtue that characterizes the Syrian people, a tool that Syrians claim that just as it made possible for them to cope with the aftermath of the terrorist war, it can now help them to cope with the aftermath of the earthquake.
Hisham News, teleSUR, Aleppo, Syria.
General Assembly of the United Nations Organization adopted on Thursday a resolution urging Russia to withdraw its troops from Ukraine. The non-binding resolution was adopted in the vote of 141 in favor, 7 against, with 32 nations abstaining, including China, India, and Iran. It is the sixth resolution adopted by the Assembly since late February 2022, when Moscow began the special military operation for the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. During the session, Russia's permanent representative of the United Nations, Vasyl Nebensia, said that this resolution will only encourage militaristic policies and Russophobia pushed by the West. Russia's permanent representative to the United Nations, Vasyl Nebensia, also recalled that his country sent its proposal on security guarantees at the end of 2021. Nebensia described this as an opportunity for diplomacy rejected by the U.S. and its allies.
The statements made by a number of countries that Russia is guilty of destroying regional and global security systems are hypocritical. Our Western colleagues now prefer not to recall that, but at the end of 2021, Russia put forth a whole number of specific initiatives on de-escalation and strengthening confidence in Europe, the Atlantic area. We proposed that the United States and NATO sign security guarantees treaties. We therefore were thus giving diplomacy a chance. But this chance was arrogantly spurned by the United States and their allies. They outright refused to even discuss our initiatives, which, if they had been realized, would have enabled us to avoid what we are witnessing today.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that the military bloc is seeing some signs that China will support Russia in a conflict with Ukraine by providing it with weapons and other assistance. The head of the Atlantic Alliance said he had received some signs that China might be planning such assistance. Stoltenberg stressed that possible Chinese aid to Moscow will amount to a direct support considered a flagrant violation of international law. We have more news coming up after a financial break, so don't go away. Welcome back. In Nigeria, presidential candidates signed a peace agreement as political tensions rise ahead of the February 25th presidential elections. The event took place just hours before the end of the electoral campaign. The initiative of the agreement was launched by religious, traditional, and opinion leaders who urged the candidates to focus on the problems and to avoid incitements to violence. This after several violence episodes were registered in the country in the last months, which attempts against electoral material and even against the integrity of some electoral candidates. With days to go before Nigeria's head to the polls, the chairman of the Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mohammed Yakubu, gave a briefing.
There are no discrepancies. So please be assured and reassured that the system is robust. We are not deploying it for the first time in the history of elections in the country, even though it is the first time that we are deploying it for major, in a general election. But we have done so in 105 constituencies, and the results are still there to be viewed. It is the largest archives of election results in Nigeria. The voter population of 93,469,008 voters is more than the total number of registered voters in all the other countries in the West Africa region put together. So each time we go to the polls, it's like conducting elections for the whole of West Africa and a substantial part of Central Africa.
Facility and personal security was one of the issues addressed by the chairman in his statement.
The build-up to the general election, several of our facilities were attacked by unknown assailants in various parts of the country. I am pleased that we have fully recovered from these attacks. We have been further assured that our facilities, staff, voters, observers, the media, and citizens will be safe during the election.
Mahmoud Yakubu also referred to the fuel situation facing the country and the assistance to be provided by Nigerian National Petroleum Company, limited to guarantee the availability of products for the elections.
As a result of recent developments in the economy, we have also had to consult with the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited on the fuel situation. As you all know, we require premium motor spirit, the PMS, or petrol, and automotive gas oil, the AGO, or simply gas, to power vehicles and boats for land and maritime transportation, as well as our generators during the election. We are pleased that the National Oil Company assured us that it will ensure availability of products for the polls.
Palestinian institutions and services went on strike on Thursday in the occupied West Bank following the Israeli army massacre in Nablus, where 11 Palestinians were killed. According to local media, stores, banks, schools, and universities closed their doors as part of the call made by the Palestinian factions as a whole. Thursday's protest denounces the event of Wednesday violence in Nablus, where more than 100 people were reported injured and 11 were killed by Israeli troops. Likewise, the Palestinians also protest the repression against their compatriots imprisoned in Israel. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also use us on our socials from Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I'm from the South, Samara Marrero, and thank you for watching.